Pastor Jeff might seem like nothing more than the goofy church guy who can't win an argument against a kid, but there's a lot more to him than that. Behind his awkward jokes and Sunday morning smiles, there's a pattern that most fans never fully piece together. And to truly get Pastor Jeff, we need to take a look at the moments that helped make him who he is, and see how his need to protect the church's reputation affects the way he treats every single person around him. Today, we take a look at the story of Pastor Jeff, starting with the part most people completely forget about. Before you can understand how bad Jeff gets later in the show, you need to see how much the Cooper family did for this man first. Because this isn't a story about a pastor being a little too strict with his church. This is a story about a guy who took everything a family had to offer and then completely abandoned them the second things got uncomfortable. It starts in season 2, episode 21, when Jeff's first marriage falls apart. His wife Selena leaves him, and the man basically has nowhere to turn. But the Coopers step up. They take Jeff into their home, give him a place to stay, and help him get through one of the worst stretches of his life. Georgie, who's still a teenager at this point, is one of the people offering Jeff comfort. That's how deep this family went for him. A kid in the house is looking after the grown man who runs the church, and it doesn't stop there. Jeff meets Robin during this whole mess, and when things start getting serious between them, Mary is the one helping him figure out the relationship. She's giving him advice, setting things up, doing all the behind-the-scenes work that Jeff can't seem to handle on his own.
She's the one who said I had to do it.
Just out of curiosity, did she also mention helping me build the crib at some point?
By season 3, she's organizing Jeff's entire wedding, and not a small one either. Jeff originally wanted something quick and basic, but Mary turns it into a real event. She's the one who makes it happen. And after that, the reliance only gets deeper. Jeff starts using Mary's ideas in his sermons. In one episode, Mary suggests he preach about being a good neighbor, and Jeff runs with it. She's not just helping at this point, she's feeding him the material he stands up and delivers every Sunday, like it came from him. By the time season 4 rolls around, George is helping Jeff build a nursery because Jeff is panicking about becoming a dad. George calms him down, helps with the physical work, and basically walks Jeff through one of the biggest changes of his life. These two aren't best friends. George is just the kind of guy who shows up for people, and Jeff takes full advantage of that. Then when Jeff's baby actually arrives, Mary and another church member start picking up Jeff's Sunday responsibilities because he needs time with his new family. So now Mary is doing her own church job and covering for Jeff on top of it, keeping the whole thing running while her boss is at home with a newborn. Step back and look at what that adds up to over the course of a few seasons. Mary is Jeff's employee, his personal advisor, his wedding planner, the person feeding him sermon ideas he uses like they're his own, and his backup pastor, all wrapped into one person. George is his handyman and his emotional support. Georgie helped take care of the guy when Jeff was at rock bottom. This family gave Jeff way more than any boss has a right to expect from the people who work for him. And they didn't do it because they had to. They did it because they actually cared about him. They brought him into their lives, held him up when he was falling apart, and never once asked for anything back. And that's exactly why everything coming next hits so hard. Because when the Coopers finally need Jeff to show up for them the same way they showed up for him, he picks the church over the family that saved his life. But the signs that Jeff would eventually turn on the Coopers were actually there from the very beginning. The show just dressed them up as jokes, so nobody took them seriously until it was way too late. Early in season 3, Jeff tries to get Mary to volunteer Sheldon for a carnival dunk tank. His reason is that Sheldon would attract people, which means more money for the church. Mary says no, but Jeff brings it up again. You can laugh at that if you want, but look at what's actually happening there. A pastor is trying to use a 9-year-old kid as a fundraising tool, and when the kid's mom says no, he pushes for it a second time. That's not a funny pastor moment. That's a guy who sees the people around him as resources he can use. That same season, in episode 8, Mary comes to Jeff with a family argument about greed, and Jeff pulls out what he thinks is a great example of resisting temptation. He tells her he wanted a toaster oven, but he talked himself out of it because he already has a toaster and an oven. That's his big moment of moral strength. And then he goes out and buys the toaster oven right after. He even apologizes to God while he's doing it. That's not a small slip. That's a man who uses himself as the example of doing the right thing during a private counseling conversation, and then fails that exact example within hours. The toaster oven thing is supposed to be a joke, and it is funny, but it also tells you something important about Jeff. The standards he holds up for other people are ones he can't even meet himself, and Jeff's reliance on Mary goes even further than wedding planning and sermon ideas. Back in season 2, Jeff asks Mary to promote a Halloween hell house for the church. Mary puts the whole thing together and the event is a hit. Jeff gets to stand in front of the result. Mary does the work behind it. This keeps happening over and over. Then, in season 5, Jeff gets caught in one of his messiest moments. He's teaching the kids about the infant Moses and Pharaoh's order to kill Hebrew boys. Missy starts challenging the story, and Sheldon is right there feeding her the tough questions. Between the two of them, they expose a contradiction Jeff can't answer. He doesn't push back or explain himself. He just moves on.
She did it because Pharaoh ordered all the male babies to be killed.
That's really in the Bible?
Yes.
And shortly after that, Jeff goes out and hires Pastor Rob as a youth pastor, basically because he can't handle being challenged by a couple of kids anymore. So instead of getting better at his own job, Jeff brings in someone else to deal with the hard questions for him. That's the same move he always makes. When something gets uncomfortable, Jeff doesn't step up. He finds someone else to handle it. A couple of seasons later, a Methodist church copies one of Jeff's signs. Mary tells him the important thing is that people are going to church regardless of who put the sign up. Jeff doesn't care about that. He's way more focused on the fact that the other pastor committed a sin by copying his idea. Church isn't about helping people in that moment for Jeff. It's a competition he needs to win. And on top of all of this, Jeff has a pattern of policing what other people watch and enjoy while completely ignoring what goes on in his own life. During a church lock-in in season 5, he grabs a copy of Dirty Dancing from the kids and treats the whole situation like a moral emergency. Dancing becomes suspicious. A movie becomes a threat. This is a small moment, but it matters later because this exact attitude is what Jeff eventually turns into a full-blown public campaign against a business that employs people in the Cooper family. The instinct to control what other people consume is there from the start. And through all of this, Jeff keeps pulling from Mary. She's feeding him sermon topics, running his events, and holding the church together while Jeff focuses on himself. He doesn't seem to notice how much she does for him. Or worse, maybe he notices and just doesn't think it's worth mentioning. Either way, the result is the same. Mary pours herself into this church, and Jeff treats it like that's just what she's supposed to do. When you watch these moments the first time, they're funny. Jeff is awkward, he's a little selfish, he's bad at practicing what he preaches. It's sitcom stuff. But on a rewatch, when you already know what's coming, every single one of these scenes feels completely different. The comedy was covering up something real. Jeff preaches rules he breaks, treats the church like a scoreboard, and depends on Mary for basically everything while seeing her as someone who's just doing her job. The pattern was always there. The show just made sure you were laughing too hard to catch it. And that thing the comedy was covering up, it stops being funny in season 5. Because what Jeff does to Mary next isn't a toaster oven or a dunk tank. It's the moment where everything he ever said from that pulpit completely falls apart. When Georgie gets Mandy pregnant, the church doesn't come after Georgie, they come after Mary. And Jeff is the one who lets it happen.
Georgie got that girl pregnant.
Keep your voice down, and yes.
It actually starts before anyone even finds out. Mary goes to Jeff for advice, keeps the details anonymous, and asks what he thinks about a situation like this. Jeff's response is pretty clear. He puts the blame on the parents and their values, and says the couple should get married before the baby comes. Mary is sitting right there, hearing her own pastor tell her, without realizing it, that this whole thing is her fault. Then the news gets out and it spreads fast. Kids at school start talking about Georgie. The gossip gets so bad that Missy punches a boy who won't stop running his mouth about her brother. The family's personal business becomes the church's favorite topic, and nobody in charge does anything to stop it. Then Jeff calls a meeting. Mary, George, and Pastor Rob all sit down with him in season 5, episode 21. Rob has an idea. He says this is a chance to teach the congregation something real about forgiveness and grace. He wants to use Georgie's situation as a genuine lesson, one that could actually help people instead of tearing a family apart.
Making a teaching moment, I like it.
That's a way to go. But I was thinking, you've got a lot going on right now. Maybe
Jeff has a real alternative sitting right in front of him. one that lines up with everything he's supposed to believe in as a pastor, one that another pastor in his own church is telling him is the right call. He shuts it down. Jeff tells Mary to take a leave of absence. Not Georgie. Not the people spreading gossip. Not the families whispering about the Coopers. Mary. The woman who planned his wedding, gave him sermon ideas, covered his shifts, held his church together, and opened her home to him when his own marriage was falling apart. That's the person Jeff decides needs to be removed. And you have to understand what this leave actually cost Mary. She's not just losing a paycheck. The church is her community. It's where she finds purpose, where she feels like she belongs, where her identity is built. Jeff doesn't just take a job from her. He cuts her off from the place that matters most to her in the world, and he does it because her son got someone pregnant, not because of anything Mary did. And you have to remember that George was sitting in that meeting too. George, who built Jeff's nursery, who calmed him down about being a father, who helped the man through some of the hardest days of his life. George is sitting right there watching Jeff throw his wife under the bus over something their 17-year-old son did. The whole Cooper family is being punished for one person's choices, and the man doing the punishing is someone they treated like family for years. Then it gets worse. In Season 6, Episode 1, Jeff invites Mary back to church. She shows up with the kids, hoping things have calmed down. They haven't. A member of the congregation refuses to shake Mary's hand. The family is made to feel like they don't belong in the building. And while all of this is playing out in the pews, Jeff is standing at the front of the room delivering a sermon about love. He's talking about love while the woman who kept his church alive is being rejected 10 feet away from him. After the service, Jeff shows up at the Cooper house and tries to say he's sorry. He tells Mary he hates to see her walk away from the Lord.
I just hate to see you walk away from the Lord.
And Mary's response kind of says everything. She tells him it feels more like the Lord is walking away from her. Then she closes the door, and that door closing is the most honest moment in the whole situation. Because Jeff's apology wasn't really an apology. He didn't go to the congregation first. He didn't tell anyone to treat Mary with respect when she came back. He didn't make the church safe before inviting her back in. He just opened the door and hoped things would work themselves out on their own. That's not a pastor taking responsibility. That's a guy trying to feel better about a choice he already knows was wrong, without doing any of the actual work to fix it. The worst part is that he had a better option the entire time. Rob told him exactly what a real pastor would do in that moment. Use it to teach grace. Use it to remind people what their faith is actually supposed to be about. Jeff heard that idea, looked at it, and decided that protecting the church's image mattered more than doing the right thing for a family that had given him everything. But if you think forcing Mary out and letting the congregation humiliate her is the worst Jeff gets, you haven't seen what comes next. Because Jeff's next move doesn't just hurt Mary's feelings or mess with her position at the church. It goes directly after her family's money. And the way it all falls apart might be the most embarrassing moment in the entire show. After everything Jeff already did to Mary, he starts a public campaign against Video Village, the store that Meemaw owns and where Mandy works. And this time, he's not just policing what people watch on a Sunday evening. He's going after the Cooper family's income. It starts when a customer complains about adult-oriented movies at the store. The complaint reaches Jeff, and he goes to Meemaw about it. When she doesn't give in, Jeff doesn't drop it. He sets up a petition table right outside the store. This isn't a private church conversation anymore. This is a public protest, right at the front door, targeting a business that employs the same family Jeff already pushed out of his church. Mandy is working there, Meemaw owns the place, and Jeff is standing outside with a petition trying to pressure both of them. But here's where the whole thing falls apart in the best way possible. Meemaw pulls the store's rental records, and what she finds is almost too perfect. Robin, Jeff's own wife, rented Dirty Dancing 5 times, and Fatal Attraction 6 times. And it's not just Robin. Other church-connected families were renting the same kinds of movies Jeff was standing outside protesting against. The guy organized a whole campaign targeting content that his own household was actively watching and enjoying on a regular basis.
So let's talk about what your church elders are renting.
Oh, come on.
Wanna know?
Is it bad?
And these aren't a couple of one-time rentals either. We're talking about repeat customers. Robin didn't accidentally grab the wrong tape once. She went back again and again. And the church-connected families did the same thing. The whole argument behind Jeff's campaign was built on a standard that the people closest to him, including people tied to his own church, were not even close to meeting. Jeff wasn't fighting against something harmful. He was fighting against something popular with his own people, while pretending it was coming from the outside. And here's the thing. When Meemaw first drops Robin's rental history on Jeff in Season 6, Episode 8, he doesn't back down. He actually stands his ground and says blackmail won't work because he believes in what he's doing. Which sounds brave until you hear what happens next. Meemaw tells him she doesn't just have Robin's records. She has the rental history of the church elders too. And the stuff they've been renting is way worse than Dirty Dancing. That's when Jeff breaks. Adult Sheldon even narrates the moment later, describing it as the sound of a man begging. Jeff's big moral stand doesn't end because his wife got caught. It ends because his church leaders got caught. He could live with his own household being exposed, but the second the people who run his church are on the line, he folds. And somehow it gets even worse after the campaign dies. A few episodes later, Jeff's niece Tanya comes to stay with him and Robin.
This is my niece Tanya. She's staying with us.
Hey, Missy.
Tanya?
Oh, you.
While she's there, Missy offers to rent Tanya an R-rated movie from Video Village, the exact store Jeff was protesting, and hides it inside a Bambi case so nobody catches on. The two of them end up watching it in the Cooper's garage because neither house feels safe. Jeff finds out about the tape and goes after Mary and Missy about it. But the real question isn't why Missy rented the movie. The real question is why Jeff's own niece was so eager to watch the kind of content Jeff made a public scene about. And why the store he tried to shut down is still the first place anyone in his orbit goes for entertainment. This whole stretch is the clearest window into who Jeff really is underneath the Pastor Act. He stood in front of a business and told his community it was harmful, while his wife was one of its most loyal customers. And his church elders were renting even worse stuff. He didn't bother checking his own circle before trying to tear down someone else's livelihood. And when Meemaw pulled the proof and laid it right on the table, Jeff didn't admit he was wrong. He didn't apologize to the store, to Mandy, or to anyone else who got caught up in it. He just quietly backed off because the only other option was watching his entire church leadership get exposed. The pattern is always the same with this guy. Jeff enforces rules for everyone else that the people closest to him don't follow. And the only thing that ever stops him is getting caught. Now, everything I just told you, the forced leave, the church rejection, the store campaign, all of it paints a pretty rough picture of Pastor Jeff. But there's one more thing he does that crosses a line most fans don't even fully process. It involves a baby, a plan Mary puts together without telling the parents, and a decision Jeff absolutely should have questioned before going along with it. And the reason this last part is so hard to talk about is because it sits right next to some of the genuinely best things Jeff ever does in the entire series. In Season 7, Episode 6, Mary calls Jeff over and tells him she wants to baptize Cece, Georgie, and Mandy's baby daughter. Jeff agrees to do it.
Can you come over right now? I need you to save someone's soul.
He goes to the Cooper home and performs the ceremony. And when Missy walks in on it, Mary covers the whole thing up and tells Missy they're just giving the baby a bath. But Mary isn't the only grandmother making moves behind the scenes. Audrey, Mandy's mother, separately arranges a Catholic baptism for Cece on her own. Neither grandmother talks to the actual parents first. And when Mandy finally finds out that both of them went behind her back, she's so done with the whole religious tug-of-war that she cancels the church wedding entirely and picks City Hall instead. Jeff is part of a chain of events where two grandmothers and a pastor take a decision about a child's faith completely out of the hands of the people who are supposed to be making that call. This baby gets baptized twice before her parents even know what's going on. Now, is Jeff the only one at fault here? No. Mary set the whole thing up, and Audrey did basically the same thing from the Catholic side. But Jeff is a pastor. He has authority over these kinds of ceremonies. He's the one person in the room who is supposed to ask the right questions before going through with something like this. And instead of pushing back or making sure Georgie and Mandy actually wanted their daughter baptized, he just went along with what Mary told him. That's the same pattern all over again. Someone brings Jeff a plan. The plan protects a certain version of how things should look. And Jeff goes with it because going with it is easier than asking the question that might make things uncomfortable. And this is the part of the story where things get really hard to tell in a simple way. Because right next to all of this, sitting in the same final stretch of the show, are some of the genuinely best things Jeff does in the entire series. And they're real. They're not fake kindness or performance. They count. Back in season 5, when George ends up in the hospital, Jeff visits him, brings cards from the Sunday school kids, and prays by his bed. That's a real act of care from someone who didn't have to be there.
Buy some get well cards from the kids at Sunday school.
Isn't that sweet?
Some interest.
During the tornado in season 6, Jeff takes shelter in Mima's hidden gambling room. He leads a prayer for everyone inside while the storm tears through the neighborhood. After it passes, he helps fix the damage, and when he realizes the room was an illegal gambling setup, he keeps his mouth shut because he figures Mima has been through enough already. That's real mercy. Not the version he preaches about on Sundays, but the actual thing, practiced quietly when nobody is watching and no one would blame him for speaking up. There's also a smaller moment in season 7 that shows Jeff wrestling with his own choices. Robin finds some money that blew loose from Mima's damaged property during the storm. Jeff objects to keeping it at first, but eventually goes along with Robin using it to buy a television. He sits with the thing for a while before finally giving it away to George. It's not a dramatic scene, but it tells you something. Jeff's first instinct is usually right. He knows what the honest move looks like. He just takes way too long to get there, and in the meantime, somebody else always pays the price. Then at the end of season 7, episode 12, George dies. And in the very next episode, Jeff steps up in a way he never did before. He visits the grieving family, helps plan the funeral, and works with their requests even when they want music that doesn't fit a traditional service. He figures out a way to make it work anyway. In the middle of the planning, Missy is overwhelmed with grief and tells Jeff to shut up. He doesn't argue with her. He doesn't lecture her about respect or pull the pastor card. He gives her room to feel what she needs to feel.
Oh, shut up, Jeff.
Missy, go to your room.
How about I just go?
And during the final baptism in the series finale, when Missy decides she doesn't want to go through with it, Jeff lets her walk away without pushing. These moments are real. They matter. Jeff can be kind when the situation is right in front of him. He can be patient when someone is hurting badly enough that he can see it with his own eyes. He can be the pastor this family actually needs when the pain is too obvious to ignore. And that's exactly what makes everything else so much worse. Because the funeral proves Jeff is able to put a family's needs above his own comfort. The tornado proves he knows what mercy looks like and can actually practice it when he chooses to. The hospital visit proves he cares enough to show up when someone is at their lowest. All of that is in the show, and all of it is real. Which means every single time Jeff chose the church's image over this family, every time he let Mary take the fall, or went after their business, or agreed to a secret plan about their baby, he wasn't acting out of some kind of cluelessness. He was making a choice. He had the ability to do the right thing. He just didn't do it when it counted the most. Look at the timeline one more time. This is a man who was taken in by the Coopers when his marriage ended, who had his wedding planned by Mary, who had his nursery built by George, who got his sermon ideas handed to him by the woman he later forced out of the church. The Coopers did all of that, and in return, Jeff punished Mary for something Georgie did, invited her back to a place where nobody wanted her, tried to shut down the family's business while his own wife was one of its best customers, and agreed to baptize their granddaughter without making sure the parents were on board. Every single one of those choices was made by a man who had already proven, through the funeral and the tornado and the hospital, that he knew how to be decent when he wanted to be. He just didn't want to be decent when it cost him something. And that's the part about Pastor Jeff that most people never fully put together. The worst version of him isn't the guy who makes mistakes. It's the guy who proves over and over again that he's perfectly able to be better, and then only shows up when it's easy. When there's no pressure from the congregation, when there's no reputation on the line, when the right thing doesn't cost him anything, Jeff is great. But the second doing the right thing means standing up to his own church, or asking a hard question, or telling Mary that what she's planning isn't his call to make, he folds. Every single time. The most dangerous people aren't the ones who are always terrible. They're the ones who are good just often enough to make you trust them, and then let you down exactly when you need them the most. That's Pastor Jeff. That's who he's always been. If you want more young Sheldon videos just like this one, subscribe and check out the one on screen right now.